Leaders are not born, they're built. While building leaders is a challenge, at Engineering Leadership, we've created a framework that actively guides anyone to discovering their potential. We establish 17 constant values that cannot be compromised no matter the situation. They offer insight to the core of leadership and provide a starting point that simplifies the world's most complicated topics. With these constants, you will be able to empower yourself and your team to tackle situations deemed impossible.
I'm Doug Hawk, a chemical engineering graduate from Clemson University and your host for Engineering Leadership. Thank you for joining us today for another episode where we bring together successful Clemson C-suite alumni to explore their stories at the intersection of leadership and engineering. And we believe leaders are built, not born, and by nailing the constants, we can build strong engineering-focused leaders who are prepared for future success. Joining me today is Tony Mathis, Chief Executive Officer with GE Edison Works and Military Systems Operations. Given Tony's Air Force veteran officer and a flight test engineering background, plus his 25 years with GE to become the creator of GE Edison Works, courage seemed like the appropriate constant for Tony to talk to us about today. And again, thanks for being here, Tony. Excited to chat with you and to share your wisdom and experience and perspective on important topics.
Great, Doug. Great to be here, and I look forward to our discussion. Thank you.
Well, we'll just start with, the engineering leadership mindset is that, leadership is a complex topic and often regarded as somewhat, mystical in many areas. And our job is to really break it down, right, into fundamentals and constants that can be taught, that can be learned, that can be passed on, that can be, a focus of mentorship. And so, courage is a really important one of those. Obviously, it's foundational to many of the other constants. Why do you think it's such an important leadership trait?
Yeah, Doug, there's a lot packed into that question. And I think, in general, I think of probably a little bit different than the average person. And here's the way I think about courage. As I'm going through my day and we're running the business, I focus on, we aren't here to manage momentum. I really coach my team. What matters is something happening that's good that wouldn't have happened if we're not here. And then then I tend to focus on then leaning forward to then make those things happen, with this balance between risk and reward. And a lot of times we have to take on things that we're not comfortable with. And over time, I've kind of figured out that, being comfortable, being uncomfortable is really a muscle that you have to develop. And so getting comfortable, being uncomfortable, driving with a sense of purpose to kind of get some of this uncomfortable stuff done, centered around principles, and making sure we do the right thing, whether it's for customers, for the team, for the business. And to me, that's courage. It's not, we're going to just randomly take a big risk. To me, this is about being thoughtful and then making bets as we're running a business. But these are educated bets tied to all the things I just talked about, understanding that we're just not here to manage momentum. We are here trying to make things happen that wouldn't happen otherwise. And I'm going to tell you, in a lot of cases, it takes an incredible amount of courage, intestinal fortitude to really be willing to place those bets, because I'm in the jet engine business. This isn't for the faint at heart, right? And so You really got to be thoughtful about what you go after, how you go after it, and understanding that a lot of our customers, lives actually depend on what we do and how we do it. And I know I kind of packed a lot in there, Doug,
No,
That's
I think
kind
you
of
made
what.
a great point in terms of getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. I think, that starts with with each of us as a leader, right, as an individual, but it's also, I think, very representative of what you have to do as a leader for the organization, right? Because
That's,
just like we all, that's when you grow. That's when
that, that's
you
right.
not in a, if you don't get out of your comfort zone, you don't
That's
learn,
right.
right?
That's right.
And I think representing the part of leadership is getting the whole organization to do that. I've often said the most dangerous statement, you hear in an organization is, well, we've always done it that way, right? And
That's
that's just
right.
like, and it takes courage, both personally and then building that courage and comfort in your organization to be uncomfortable and to get out of the traditional lane and not do it the way it's always been done, because that's how things get better.
Absolutely. And look, I give the General Electric Company an incredible amount of credit. In the first, I'd say, 5 or 6 years of my career, I bet I had 7 or 8 different jobs. Every time I was getting comfortable, I got another job, and I and I was uncomfortable again. And then I'd start to get comfortable, and then I'd get another job, and I'd be uncomfortable again. And I did that. I didn't keep a job more than 10 to 16 months. In the first 4 or 5 years of my career, and as uncomfortable as I was early in my career, by the time I got the biggest job, so the last 3 jobs, by far the biggest jobs of my career, way more comfortable than I've ever been, because being comfortable, being uncomfortable is just like any other muscle. The more you exercise it, the better you get at it. And so I know a lot of times, as we're going through our careers, we shy away from that, thing that we don't know, when in fact, it's what you just said. I have grown the most in the jobs where I've been the most uncomfortable. And now that I am in these big jobs, I have an incredible base to deal with in terms of making decisions and breadth of experience, because the company was thoughtful enough to really push me to be uncomfortable early in my career.
Right. No, that's great. And speaking of that base, I mean, you're from a small town in Georgia. You made the jump to a big school like Clemson. I mean, were there specific moments and relationships at Clemson that helped you build that early base and gain some confidence and insights as a leader?
Yeah. No, look, when I came to Clemson, the first time, it was actually sophomore year of my of high school, in a summer science and engineering program, which probably was one of the most pivotal things I've ever done in my life, because it really helped me understand that, first of all, I wanted to come to Clemson, but I made friends in that camp that really, actually, several of them I'm still friends of to this day. So over 40 years of friends came out of that. But then coming to Clemson, I did a number of things that were pivotal. One, I came to Clemson on an Air Force ROTC scholarship. So I was in ROTC. I really, this thing about leadership, it was a great start. I've grown a lot since then, but I started my journey as a function of that. The other thing is, I joined a fraternity, and as much fun as we had, and we had a ton of fun in the fraternity. The thing that fraternity taught me was this thing about being selfless, and that this is about helping others, helping each other, teamwork, and the combination of the friends, the friendship, the selfless acts I've seen both in the fraternity and as a part of ROTC at Clemson, were just a great foundation, coming out of school as I left and went into the Air Force, but very pivotal, Doug, in my leadership development.
Yeah, I've often shared that, with a number of folks about my Clemson experience that, joining, I was in a fraternity as well. And it was, we went through some rough times as a chapter, and I ended up being what I call a turnaround president of the fraternity.
Mm-hmm.
And having to deal with, tough disciplinary issues. And
That's right.
I mean, it was, pinched between administration and student development and the
That's right.
needs of your members and brothers, right? It was,
That's right.
and and it was really the first time, I was a fairly shy kid, and
Same.
and typical engineer, like I
Yeah.
loved the numbers and the things you could put your hands around and do something with, but very uncomfortable and shy in front of groups.
That's right.
So I tell people to this day, I've probably given, I don't know, 2,000 speeches full of, small rooms to big auditoriums, and have gotten proficient at it, but never will be totally comfortable with it.
That's
Right.
That's right.
But it started there on campus, where I just thrown into the sort of, chaos of that situation and having to find a way through it.
Yeah.
And I do think,
and Doug, I think a lot of times we don't realize that taking leadership roles in groups like fraternities and other groups is a great non-threatening way to start on your leadership journey, to really practice, in basically a non-threatening environment, but a great experience. And I've learned that if you can get people that don't work for you to do stuff, that's when you're a leader. I mean, telling somebody who works directly for you to do something, that's management. Getting people to do, like in a fraternity, getting people to follow. And you're just like you. I've been the president of our fraternity. I've even as a graduate, I've participated. I still participate to this day. But a great way to really test how really good you are at energizing a group, in a direction around a cause or something. I just think it's a great opportunity that sometimes I think we just miss, as we're going through life.
Yeah, and I think that, and I think it's, the engineering curriculum is demanding, right? So a lot
That's
of
right.
folks, I think, get focused on that, rightly so. But I think the campus
That balance
provides a ton of opportunities to, small and big. But I think it's so important to, again, insert yourself into something that you've got some passion for and some excitement around, and find some friendships and relationships, but in ways that probably makes you uncomfortable. And the other thing I've found is, when it comes to helping folks, giving back, supporting our communities, the other element of it is you never have the time. Like,
that's right.
You never will. If you wait until you have the time, you'll never do it. And
You'll never do it.
have to do, but when someone needs help and you can make a difference, you have to give it, right? What is my personal rule, and I'll somehow make the time along the way, right? And
I agree.
Just a reminder to young engineers that are focused on that, either getting through the curriculum or that first job where it can be very demanding and there's a lot of hours. It's still important to do those other things.
That's right.
Find ways to engage and support, whether it's community or church or your cause, pick one, but get engaged and make the time for it.
Yeah. And one last comment on this topic, Doug. Two things. One, we as busy as we are, we put our time on what we put a priority on. So if you make it a priority to help others and participate in some of these civic and other groups, then you'll do it. And then and in doing that, again, I think it just creates just an incredible opportunity to continue to grow. So good.
Right. Well, one of the things, we talked a little bit about mentorship and the opportunities to do that. I know it's been certainly one of the most rewarding aspects of my career is, and I tell folks when I get to be a mentor now, but I had some great mentors along the way, how important was that in your development of finding those leaders to share some time with you early on?
Yeah, no, it was pivotal. And it's just, it is amazing as I think back through my career, how many people actually on their own accord made a concerted effort to help me. And it's not just, there's just an incredible list of leaders that I've worked for that had taken a personal interest in me, not just when I was working for them, but even after I worked for them. I've had individuals that just have invited me to come talk to them. I'll never forget it. There's a, within the first 2 years of coming to GE, one of the people I admired the most, he was a senior executive running a big airplane program. And I just thought this guy was just phenomenal, African American, and he invited me to his office. I mean, I didn't know him personally at all, but some kind of way he got my name. He took the time to invite me over. I go in, I'm nervous as all get up, and we just talked, and he just wanted to get to know me, and he ended up being my mentor until he retired. I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, and he took such a strong interest, and there was, as great a career as I've had at GE, I've had some bad days, and Lloyd, his name was Lloyd, and on those bad days, having somebody, Lloyd, that I knew and I trusted, and who was willing to listen for the most part, and then share thoughts, was just invaluable. And then if something happened that didn't make sense that I was doing, he more than willing to tell me. But having those people who take a vested interest in you is just it's just amazing. And I'm like you, Doug. And you can ask my administrative assistants. I frustrate her to no end because I'm very busy. But if somebody asks to talk to me, I always say yes. We will find a way, because I know that I wouldn't be here without the support, coaching, mentoring, and sponsorship. I mean, there are a few people who have put me in some jobs that, it wasn't a slam dunk. I mean, there was risk. They took risk on me, and I've always appreciated it, and always put my best foot forward. Even this job I'm in today, big job, not a shoe in that I was going to be here, right?
Well, and I think the other thing that I've found, Tony, is that I always get as much or more back out of those interactions as
that's right.
Right. Like whether it's perspective, experience, just a shared experience with a different view I didn't fully understand. And I think I tell my kids, most of the best things that have happened to me have been when I was, looking to help someone else, not when I was looking to help myself.
That's right. No, absolutely. And one thing, my biggest fear, I mean, I run a $5 billion business. My biggest fear is that I get so far away from customers, so far away from product, that we're now making big decisions about running the business, totally disconnected from the real world. And by a lot of these relationships and discussions, to your point, are, you can extract incredible insights on what's really going on with the business, what the team really is thinking, and not just my team, but other teams across the business, because we're here to do what's in the best interest of the total company, not just my particular part of business. I think is what you just said is spot on, and it's invaluable to us as leaders also.
Well, tell us a little bit about, you've been with GE a long time, and then now what were the key insights to creating this new business unit? I mean, tell us a little bit about it. I mean, Edison work, like just the courage it took to do that, and the engagement we've talked about to sort of see the insights and the perspectives that, catalyze that.
Yeah. Well, so I run the, believe it or not, I run the largest military jet engine business in the world. It's, I pinch myself every day, Doug. It's pretty cool. And when I came, I've been in a job now 4 years, and when I got here, we sat down as a leadership team, and we kind of created a vision for where we're going to try to take the business. And the line I drew, and my boss, keeps trying to redraw it, but I drew a line that said, look, we believe we can grow this business at a 9% CAGR, compounded annual growth rate for the next decade, which is, that's a bold, audacious goal. And as a part of that, there was a lot of things we had to go win, and the way I think about the business, shipping production engines today, things we've won in past, the way I think about it, I get no credit for those. If I don't ship them, I get all the bad credit, but I get no. Now, what I get credit for is winning new things that grows this business over time. And so we laid out back in 2016, here's all the things we're going to go do. Now, one of the biggest things that had to be done was in the large combat space. That part of the business is a classified business. Right now, we have a very small classified business. And I got to thinking about, the magnitude of what we're going to do. And I'm like, if I'm going to go try to defend this program by program, very difficult. But if we create a business around it, create, a brand, right? And so what we've done is we've taken all the classified parts of the business, we've put them together, we've created a brand, we've created, this notion of, speed with innovation, for going after growth. And now we're developing new capabilities that never existed in this business. It's exciting, but it was I spent a lot of time debating corporate over this, right, Doug? Everybody wasn't on board.
No.
And the last thing I'll say is, and frankly, I don't know that I was actually winning the battle on trying to get this thing created. But you know how I got enough credibility to get it over the goal line? We won like 2 or 3 really big things. We won a $20 billion next generation helicopter engine program. We won a next generation trainer engine program, and I can go down the list. So everything on that plot we laid out for everybody, we won. So we were now credible. The biggest thing left was this, and my boss said, "Tony, you name it what you want," right? Because we built enough, we'd taken enough risk, we those materialized into real things that the business could see, and so the biggest one now that we're trying to do, and this is this Edison Works thing, they had so much confidence in our team that they said, "Okay, Tony, you name it what you want. Forget what corporate says." And here we go. And now we just at the end of the year moved 4,000 people aligned into this business. Wow. Everything classified is now in our business, and we've got a whole new team. Exciting, but uncomfortable, Doug.
No, it's a great example. I mean, there couldn't be a better example of the courage and leadership in business that it takes to, you totally changed what had been successful and yet always done a certain way, and
that's right,
to pursue it completely differently, and obviously, having the courage to confront that, disbelief in many corners, right, and doubt, concerns, and any advice for particularly those earlier in the career when they confront, I wouldn't necessarily call it adversity, but sort of maybe it can range from disagreements to outward. It can be adversity. It can be it can be tough at times. I mean, you got to take the blow, right, to advance it.
Here's the advice I would give, especially for people earlier in their career. We hire you because you're very intelligent. Now, what I see is a lot of time is very intelligent people waiting for us to tell them what to do. Well, that's not what we hire. What I would suggest is you go understand context. What is this business? What are we trying to do as a business? What are we trying to do for customers? What are we trying to do for product? And then now take all that intellect, which is why we hired you, with the context, and then you come and help us shape the dialogue, help us decide where to take the risk, help us be bold, and that to me, knowing what I know now, And if I were starting coming out of college, that's where I would start. I would start with understanding what the team is trying to get done and making sure I am using my intellect to do that. And look, Doug, I remember once, big job. I went to work for a guy, and I think he's one of the best commercial leaders in this business. But when I went to work from him initially, he would call me and go, "Tony, do this." And I'm in a big job every day telling me what to do. It drove me crazy. But then, so what I did was I then every time I talked to him, you tell him what to do, I'd go do it. And then I always have something in my back pocket and say, "Oh, by the way, here's something else that we should be doing." And then next time I talk, and here's something else. And oh, by the way, I get all that, but here's, and we it took about 3 months, but we flipped the conversation from, "Tony, here's what you go do," to, "Hey, Tony, what's going on? What should we be focusing on?" But because I spent the time to understand the context of what my business and my boss was trying to get done. And then I became part of the dialogue. I helped shape the dialogue, and completely flipped it. And to me, Doug, that would be just the little, it's not much, but that's the little piece of advice I would give somebody coming out. You're very smart. Use your intellect, right?
Yeah. And expand the horizon, right? Understand your company's competitors, your
That's
supply,
right.
Don't understand your supply chain you live within, that whole ecosystem that, influences and perhaps drives a big part of the success or failure of the company. I think engineers have a tendency, right, to say, "Hey, well, that's not my job. I got,
That's right.
got an important job. It's complicated. It's tough. I'm focused, right?" And and all that is necessary at those points in time, especially when you're in that individual contributor mode, right, to knock out the work. But again, I think taking those first steps towards leadership absolutely requires a view on the context and the environment and relationships and the general situation, right? That the whole company's in, not even just your division or department or job, right?
No, I think you're spot on. I give you one more quick example. Individual, you mentioned individual contributor. I was in a review, I think it was last week. There was an individual contributor, and we were talking about the spares part of the business, and he was taking me through this innovative way that he wanted to restructure how we run the business, and it was one of the most exciting things I'd seen. And then at the end of the presentation, he sat and I've been working this kind of in my spare time to figure this out. And then I said, "Well, tell me what resources you need, because we are now going to resource this." Since you're not, but again, he understood what we were trying to get done, put a great idea on the table, and I am committed to make sure he gets the resources to make that happen. This is an individual contributor in this business. It's going to have a huge impact on where we go, right?
Yeah. Where was, one of the things I always like to ask during these interviews, because I remember the moment for myself, which was, frustrating and tearful and scary all in the same night. But, was there a moment for you in that switch from, early on individual contributor to, "Hey, I always want to be a great engineer, but now I want to try and get great at this leadership thing and do the work it takes to really, make that switch"? Was it a gradual thing, or was it just, it was of course gradual progress, but the decision for me was a moment in time, right?
Yeah, no, it really happened like within the first 2 years. I would say I came to GE. I hired into GE into engineering as a black belt. And at the time, GE was using the Six Sigma program as a leadership development program. And so in addition to working some very complex engineering projects, they were very conscious about getting us visibility into the engineering vice president. The CEO of the business would come talk to us, the CFO. And I just got fascinated with these. I'm like, these guys are running this, now $30 billion business. I wanted to, as much as I was excited about, what we were doing in terms of projects and things, I decided I want to get closer to the front end of the business. And I'll never forget, I told the engineering leaders, my boss, and they really liked me. I mean, I was, again, I had only been in the company a year and a half, and I'll never forget, I had a conversation with, they had me to talk to the HR leader for engineering. And he said, Tony, we really like you. And he told me, we believe you will be an executive in this company. But he says, if you leave engineering, all bets are off. That's what he told me, Doug. I'm like a year and a half in the company. I left. They didn't help me find a job. I found my own job because I had this glimpse, and I just want to get on the other side of this thing and not just on the engineering side. And I've got lots of stories. It was hard to get out of engineering because they weren't helping me. But eventually, I got out of engineering and progressively found roles closer to customers, to running a P&L, to running products, but it was a tough call. But I did what I thought I had a passion for. I went after, and frankly, they offered me a promotion in engineering. I actually took a lateral to get out, right? And because I wanted to get closer to what I had a real passion for. But it was, it was a risk, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's another great example of the courage it takes to progress things, right? And take those chances, risk reward balanced, but always, with that balance in mind. And I think the other thing I try to encourage and sort of get engineers exposed to is that, hey, building companies and building businesses is building, right? It's still, your skills as an engineer they're not wasted. They're not.
That's right.
In fact, they're essential, right? And
you're right.
Having that mindset to be, think of the complexity of what you're trying to accomplish as across the whole company, well beyond individual products or projects or, production lines, right? But mastering that complexity, that engineering's a great
it is
basis for that, right? To break things down, be able to get them into, keep breaking them down till you can understand them, build them back up, and then develop and build. And I tell folks, they're like, how'd you end up doing what you're doing? I said, well, I am an engineer. I love to build stuff.
Right.
I just got fascinated with building companies instead of just building a project or a thing or a product. And, it does take leadership, but it's still, I think for those maybe listening who think, well, that's not really engineering anymore. I say, no, it's just, it's a different application of the skills that you've taken so much time to learn. But thinking about them that way, I think, can help people, lean into that.
Absolutely. And I run a $5 billion business, but the thing I love about running a business is I get to do what you just said. I get to spend a fair amount of time with the engineers and the technology. And matter of fact, I got to put in a plug. We just ran for the first time an engine we've been working on for over a decade. It's like, it's a feeling like none other, right? And so, but I get to deal with the technology and in terms of real products, in terms of the investment decisions. I get to deal with the team. I get to deal with customers. I get to deal with financials. I get to do a supply chain. I love running business because you get to do it all, including the engineering, and having an engineering degree is very helpful, Doug, as you know, in running this business. And I rely on it every day. What I learned. Now I have an engineering degree as well, an MBA, but the engineering degree is the foundation for how I think, how I solve problems, how I engage the team.
Great. Yeah, I know we're running up on time, but I wanted to. Couple more. Any books, resources, websites, curriculums that were that you always want to pass on.
Look, I have my favorite book. It was, I was running a Navy business up in Boston, and I got to know this admiral in the Navy, and that Navy wanted to do something that they'd never done before. And the Admiral told me, he said, "Hey, Tony, there's something that we want to do. We want to do it with the General Electric Company, but I'm not gonna talk to you about it until you read this book." Right? The book was The Speed of Trust by Stephen McCovey. So I read this book, and it fundamentally says that without trust, it's hard to do. It basically says it's hard to do business with people that you don't trust. And his point was, we're going to do this innovative thing with you guys because we trust you. And he wanted me to make sure I understood it. We put a construct in place for supporting the Navy, still in place today. It's in my business now. But it's one of my favorite books. It's been pivotal. It was pivotal to me and how I think about doing deals. And I've done lots of deals. I don't do deals as a result of reading that book and working with the Admiral. I do no deals where we win and the other person lose, because eventually they're going to figure it out. Yeah. I just want it to be fair and reasonable for both of us. I think it's a great book. And then just one other one is, the other thing, just in the interest of full disclosure, I've had lots of executive coaches. So there's a lot of things I had to work on. But one of them had me read this book called The Energy Bus. Yep. And it talks about, people on the team and the ones that add energy and the types of people that can subtract energy. And to me, another pivotal point in my career, more on the team side. So, but customers and team, two very big deals for me.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate those. And, on our way out, any was the most important lesson as a leader, or any really, final bits of wisdom here for the crew?
Yeah. Look, Doug, the most pivotal thing that ever happened to me in my career happened, and this is not a good news story, by the way, happened when I was in the Air Force. And I went to this course. It was called Squadron Officer School. And at Squadron Officer School, they measured everything. They measured how you did on tasks. They measured how fast you ran the mile and a half. They measured, how you did in a leadership exercise. Everything was measured. And I made A's on all the tests. I could run the mile and a half faster than anybody else in the squadron. I was, we had these little funky little games. I could score more points than the average Joe. And at the end of the class, they kind of rate everybody. And I'll never forget it. I sat down with squadron commander, and there was on the left side was low, on the right side was high. He put my X in the middle. He literally rated me average. The first time in my life I'd ever been rated. And I'm not an arrogant person, but my entire life I had been above average on everything. And you know what he said to me? He said, "Tony, sure, you could run the mile and a half faster than anybody else in the squadron, but there were guys struggling just to make the minimum time, and you didn't help them. And yeah, you made A's on all the tasks. There are people that, trying to get to a C, and you didn't help them either." And he went down the list and sent that the most pivotal leadership lesson I've ever had. My therapist says I'm over it. I'm not so sure. But now, so as I'm running this business, it's not about Tony Mathis. It's not about the business. This is about the company. It's about the customers. It's about the team. We want the tide to rise such that all the boats rise. We're not trying to do something for me or any other individual. And that would be the last message I would say. This is about doing what's right for the enterprise, right? If you do something that makes everybody better versus just yourself, you're going to have a much bigger impact. And I've learned that, and I preach it, and I it's a guiding principle for everything I do. in the business. So my last.
Awesome. No, that's a great one to go out on. It's so important. I mean, leadership has to be about others, about your team, about your community, company, right? And it's often about, putting yourself last on the list, right? And making sure that, you can get everybody else there. And if you do that, look, there's plenty of rewards for all, right?
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thanks so much for being with us today and sharing your story and those great points of advice. And, can't thank you enough for trying to give back to the Clemson community and engineers everywhere. And go Tigers.
Thanks, Doug, for the invitation. I really enjoyed the conversation. And go Tigers.